All right, welcome, CvCISO podcast listeners. Welcome. That's not, I didn't say that right. Welcome to episode 45 of the CvCISO podcast. Joining me as usual is Meg. People are super happy. And then Jordan.
Hello.
Jordan is also here. Wow, so loud.
Sorry. It was very aggressive.
Got fired up for a Friday morning, aren't we?
I always get fired up on these Friday mornings.
Somebody broke into the caffeine cabinet. Do you have a caffeine cabinet? Do you have a caffeine cabinet, Jordan? Mine's right here. Look.
Yeah, you take caffeine pills. You got the good stuff. Just it's straight to the brain.
It's like, it's faster and I can do a little more of it,
I didn't even.
This episode brought to you by caffeine pills. Caffeine pills. Because who needs to sleep?
It's also brought to you by Davon, I believe, and Dick, who was Meg's uncle. And who else was here? Gene. Hi, Gene.
Hi, Gene.
Yeah. All right. So the topic for today, whenever you're listening to it, I don't know if you're listening to it at night or morning.
Probably. I bet you people light the fire, dim the lights and turn on their favorite episode of CvCISO podcast.
Slip into something comfortable, get some mood music going in the background.
Bubble bath? Is anyone listening in from a bubble bath?
Bubble bath. Look at when I say that, watch my lips. Bubble bath. It's funny, bubble bath. Yeah.
If anyone's listening from a bubble bath, please let us know and you'll get a prize. Maybe a caffeine pill.
A caffeine pill sent to you from Mexico. Yeah. The episode.
But we want pics.
No, gosh, Jordan, we do not want pics. Well, I don't know.
Jordan, Evan is rubbing off on you.
Yeah.
Stop rubbing on me.
Watch my lips again when I say it. Bubble bath. Bubble bath. Bubble bath.
Bubble bath. Bubble bath. Do it, Meg. Bubble bath.
Bubble bath.
All right. So we have we have like 10 rules that we use for information security to kind of guide us at FR Secure. And one of those is we have fun. So it's this kind of stuff that it actually makes it fun. We take our job so seriously, and I think we get maybe wrapped around the axle on some things. At the end of the day, like usually, I suppose it depends on the context, but usually people don't die when we get things wrong and we make mistakes. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So I think that's a good segue and a good piece of advice for people is have fun.
Yeah.
Don't take this so damn seriously. If you want to laugh about bubble bath, laugh at bubble bath.
You have our permission to smile and giggle even. It's
and
hygienic.
It's hygienic. And along those same lines, so the topic for today's podcast, so we take things so seriously, right? We, I think sometimes just get caught up in things and we think like security is everything, right? My job, I'm the CISO, I'm the vCISO, I'm the security analyst, I'm whatever. Security is everything. So Meg brought up a really good topic for today's episode. The topic is security first, a mentality of security first. And I think it's going to be a fantastic discussion between the three of us because first of all, what the hell does that mean? Secondly, should security come first? Building a security first culture? So I think it's a great topic, and we have Meg to thank for that.
Thanks, Meg.
You're welcome.
So have you guys ever heard that in our industry? People say that verbally, security first culture. You have to build a security first culture.
Maybe not in those exact words, but feel like I've heard people allude to that idea. Yeah, gotta be security first. We're a security first company.
Yeah. So if I'm a vCISO and I'm walking into a company where the culture isn't security first, do you think that's something that I should strive for? Something that I should focus on?
Well, how do you know, first of all, what tips you off that security is not first at a company?
I think, when they walk around and if computers are left unlocked and unattended, I think they embrace things like multi-factor authentication. Like, yeah, we love multi-factor authentication. And I think you'll pick up on it pretty quickly, and if you're walking down the hallway and you're not wearing a visitor badge, did anybody say anything to you? I think watching people walk into the building, is there, if it's a controlled access point, are they piggybacking? I think there's a lot of ways you can just tell. Really like the difference between walking into a high secure facility, like an enterprise data center versus, maybe a satellite office somewhere, you'll feel it, I think. Don't you?
I definitely think you feel it. When I was a security analyst, I actually was a part of the attempt to build that culture, which was super cool to be a part of because, you started to see the wheels spinning and people starting to consider security principles when they before didn't have to think about anything that just wasn't even a part of what they thought about. And so I think that was part of build and the first word, I agree. I don't think that it was anything that was verbalized like, security first, but definitely making security a priority.
So that's a little different way to phrase it.
Well,
Prioritizing security.
Well, and I think most people think that if they don't think it, they act it, that like information security is a specialized skill. The basics, the fundamentals, when in my opinion, these are life skills. These aren't supposed to be specialized skills. They're supposed to be skills that everybody has. Everybody, it starts with situational awareness. You understand the situation you're in. You understand the things that are going on around you. You understand, emails, the situation, why you got the email. I got an email from a CEO asked me for a gift card. Well, that's funny. I've never gotten that before. So that should trigger something, in your situational awareness. Those things are all life skills. And I think not we, but people who don't do this for a living, I think, have a tendency to think that somebody else is taking care of this for you. So I don't have to devote any time to building these skills. I don't have to take any time to paying attention. I'm busy. My job is sales. My job is marketing. My job is accounting. That's what I focus on. And if I click the damn link, well, that's why we got a security team. Take care of that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was saying to Meg earlier, was that to me, it seems like to build that culture, then what you do is you find ways to nurture that, like those red flags. People have them, but to your point, they might say, well, that was odd. Well, I'll just keep doing it. It's not none of my business to
They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. Like they don't
know what to do. They don't feel empowered to do it.
Yeah. Because to me, training is a big piece of this. Like if you want to build a security culture, then it starts with training. Because if you get that email that has that link and you don't know anything about how, bad actors work, then you're not going to think anything of clicking the URL. You're just going to do it because that's just your natural response.
Yeah, I agree with that. The part that I have a little trouble with is security first, because it's not first, not in a business anyway. What's first is making money. What's first is, fulfilling the objectives of the business. Now, security needs to be integrated into that. And ideally, it's integrated into that very early on in the process. So in one way, security does come first because we don't do things here without being prudent, without, being responsible. So security is just kind of built into the things we do. But in terms of priorities for a business, number one would be making money. But it's almost like I have struggled with being able to separate the two, because why can't we make money and be secure? And defining secure as being risk management, which means, you risk aware. It means being situationally aware, understanding the environment that I'm working in, the threats that are around me and my weaknesses. It's just, you do the same thing. I was talking to a buddy last night. We do the same thing at home, usually, most people, right? It's not so mechanical like it is with information security. And the reason why it's mechanical and it feels that way is because it's new for you. You haven't done an information security risk assessment before. All these things would be new ways of thinking about things. If you take a look at your house, for instance, I know the neighborhood I live in. I know, some of the most common threats in this area in terms of like foot traffic, road traffic, crime rates, stuff like that. So, and I accept some risks, right? Some windows in my house are not locked. Some doors are locked and they're locked with different kinds of locks, and then you play well, if somebody did break into my house, what do I have in place to detect it? And if I did detect it, how would I respond to it, right? So you do these things. You may not formally write them down and everything, but you've accepted the risks and you sleep well at night, probably. Whereas if I was in a situation, the environment that I was in, rather than being here, let's say I was in like East St. Louis, right? You're situationally where you're like, okay, the crime rate is high, lots of foot traffic, violence, whatever it is. So you put different types of things, right? You lock your doors at night. You don't leave the keys in your car. You might have bars on your windows. It's like, so you do this kind of thing, security, you don't separate it, right? It's just how you live life. And that's the thing about information security. I think so many people who don't know better think that this is a specialized skill, because that's what's portrayed, right? The hacker, the hoodie on, dark room, matrixy thing on the screen. Like this is some kind of that. There are specialized skills in everything.
Yeah.
But the things that we're talking about are life skills. When I use a computer, I understand what's going on around me. So there's not shoulder surfing going on. When I'm having conversations and it's confidential information, I'm not doing it, at the dinner table. It's when I click a link. Because there's so many kind of stupid things that we tell people to do in this industry. Like we tell people, stop clicking links. That's what? I mean, I can't do work without clicking links. And you gave me a fucking mouse.
Yeah.
So,
and you sent me an email today that had a link in it.
Hopefully it was from.
Yeah.
So I agree on the training thing. Training, and just it's splitting hairs, but training is to teach, to teach skills to accomplish something. I mean, it's more tangible. You've got that piece, and you've got the awareness piece too, where it's making people aware of what's going on. And, if your business is a bank, you've got a different environment you operate in with different threats, versus a manufacturing facility versus, a retail outlet. So I kind of agree with the security first, because if you're doing this right, security is just part of everything. It doesn't get in the way of things.
Yeah.
Unless it needs to get in the way of things. Like if the crime rate here where I live, if you're situationally aware, paying attention to what's going on, it's like, all right, 3 of my neighbors got broken into in the last couple of weeks. I might need to up, some of the preventative controls. I might need to upgrade my locks. I might need to put in some cameras. It's just paying attention to what's going on. I think people struggle because you can relate to it physically. What about on a computer? When you open your computer, you go to a website, like you're in a pretty dangerous neighborhood.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to the drive-bys and whatever else is going on online.
So when you're creating this culture, because that's really what it's about. Like Evan, you had mentioned earlier, it's business first. And I don't know, like from an operational standpoint, but from like a culture environment, like creating that culture within the entire organization that understands all these potential problems that could surface that you were just talking about. It's a culture thing.
And that's why canned training doesn't work. Canned training, is very limited. And it's, so while I love companies like KnowBe4 and other training companies, it has to fit the culture, right? Every culture and every organization is different, and people have to see themselves in it. Like, why would I pay attention to this if it doesn't make me more money or give me a promotion, make my life better?
Yeah.
What motivates your people to even give a shit about this?
Yeah. I think it also has to come from, like leadership has to be, create that culture. They have to be all in on it and, living it that way too. If you're trying to, maybe not security first, but integrated security into everything.
Yeah.
And encouraging people to speak up when they see something, stand up for stuff, starts with the leadership.
Yeah. And as a VCISO, that's a great point, because as a VCISO, number one, I have to be comfortable talking to leadership. I can't shy away from it. I can't be, and I suppose I could, but somebody's going to have to talk to leadership. So, and my job is to consult the business to make these good information security risk decisions. So how do I do that without talking to leadership? So, you have to get comfortable speaking with leadership. And then you understand, we teach it in the class. We're teaching in the CvCISO class, right? Trying to understand what motivates them. Is it ego? Well, then that's going to change the way I communicate. And you do the same thing, if you think about it, with your friends, with your family members. You know them, right? And you know how to talk to them, right? I talk to my wife different than I talk to my daughter. I talk to my daughter different than I talk to my friends. And some of my friends are egotists, right? So, if I wanted some cooperation with them, I'd have to serve that a little bit. Some of my friends are really motivated by money. Some of my friends are really motivated by just mission. They don't give a shit about money or ego, and they're selfless, so it's the same thing with executive. You're just talking to another person.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want information security to be part of the culture, which is a good idea, they have to understand, what's in it for them. What's in it for them personally? What's in it for the business? And then, key in on that.
And I found
we've oversold security and fear so much in this industry that a lot of them have kind of shut the door or very skeptical about what we're going to say to them. So use logic, use reason, talk through these things. Why does it benefit the company? if I spend $20,000, $100,000 on information security training and awareness programs, what do I get in return for that?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I found was when we were establishing our information security committee, that really helped with the culture because we had representation from across the business. And so you had HR people in there, you had finance people in there, we had outside, not really consultants, but kind of like that's how they served.
Contractors.
Contributors. So we had outside people, then you had the IT people, you had executives. So it brought like all these areas of the organization together to focus on security. And then what happens is they go back to their respective areas because now they understand it in context of their department. And I thought that was really because then we started to see an increase in participation in the phishing email, campaign that we were doing or because people started to get it and not because IT, an outsider, is telling them this is what you need to be doing it, but because within their own departments, they were talking about why it needed to be done.
Yeah. And like we talked about last week, what they see in most executives, CEOs, what they're thinking is that one question that I got, that one time, will this make us more money? And so you wouldn't be able to convince them security first, literally, because I think it'd be really hard to defend that with them, unless depending on the business, I suppose. But, how is this going to make us more money? How is it going to make us more money? So thinking of ways to demonstrate how training and awareness, making our employees more situationally aware, more resilient, what are ways that can make us money? And you can always go to the loss piece. You're like, well, it's going to save us money and like attacks. But the default for most people is it's not going to happen to us. It's not going to happen to me. So that's why just going the straight like risk prevention, loss prevention side, that's not what their focus is. Their focus is really on more growing the business on the front end, right? More revenue, more profit. So I think to get buy-in from the executives that we need to truly make information security part of the culture. Some will give you the benefit of the doubt, but I think the better you can understand how this is going to make the business more money, the more successful it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then when you're thinking of metrics to measure the performance of your training and awareness programs, try to think creatively outside of the box on money things, right? Because what we normally do is like, well, before training, when we sent these phishing links and everything, we had a 30% click rate. Now we got a 12% click rate. So look how much improvement we made. If you could translate that into dollars and or translate how less calls to the help desk on password resets, less process breakdown kind of things, whatever. Because those things would all, I think, much easier to translate into how that makes us more money. So look for those kinds of things I like that. Because I don't think you're going to get to a security first. And I would have trouble, even as a vCISO, driving that bus, but certainly security integrated with anything and how does it, and pointing out ways that it benefits the business, how it benefits your employees personally, how it helps. I mean, there's so many benefits, like even mental health benefits. That doesn't translate to dollars maybe as easily, but if our employees are happier, if our employees are more confident and they know where to go and it's got to help somewhere.
Yeah.
Having confident employees is helpful.
Competent,
which is,
yeah.
And
It's
so
helpful.
part of it, if we're talking about like nurturing that too, we brought this up many times in other areas too, but like, incentivizing that, rewarding people for thinking that way, like, cause, even bringing up like the tailgating thing, like even if you establish somewhat of a integrated security culture, it's hard to do. It's awkward to tell someone, no, you can't come in until, and so you really, you finding ways to incentivize it, celebrating when people do the right thing, like I think can help, if you've already established that the leadership is in and they want this and they see the value, providing the training and then celebrate. You got to make it a part of every day, I don't know about every company, but we have a daily huddle every day, and we oftentimes, it doesn't take long to just even add something to your daily meeting of, are there any security wins that happened today? Anyone catch anything? Let's clap about Well,
That's
yeah, I
that's
stopped
great
someone
advice.
from coming in, and it was UPS, but whatever. But let's clap
Well, that's
about
it.
it. Let's laugh about it.
Yeah.
Let's smile about it.
Yeah, I think because people that attracts people, right? I think sometimes it's so negative outcome based, right? You click the link, and so what about the 85% that didn't click the link? Maybe we should have a party or something. You know what I mean? Tout those wins, the positivity. Because there's another lie that I hear a lot, kind of around this, and that's people say all the time, people are the weakest link, and I disagree with that. I don't think people are the weakest link. I think the weakest link is the design of the system that we provided to them. So we talk about piggybacking right through a door. The
Not
fact
just
that
piggybacking down the hall.
no, but that's a shitty design. If that entry point is so important to where you won't accept piggybacking, then don't put a turnstile in a different type of door that doesn't allow you to do piggybacking. Because what you did is you don't understand humans. It's they're not the weakest link. You have a shitty design. When you think about, when you say don't click the links, well, then why the hell are the links on everything? You know what I mean? It's not the people. They're not stupid. We can always improve, right? We can always be more situationally aware. We can always pay attention more. We can always, it's just prudent in your life, right? To have contingency plans, whether they're formal or not, if things go bad, right? If somebody did break in, if, a hurricane did wipe out my house, but because when you keep emphasizing that people are the weakest link, who wants to play ball with you when you keep telling them they're weak, that people are the weakest link, because if you use people correctly, they're actually one of your biggest assets.
Mm-hmm.
They'll identify, unusual activities and attacks and things that are out of place before most of your systems will, if they're trained well or if they're aware.
Yeah.
So rather than the weakest link, how about the strongest or one of the strongest?
And that's the key, is to help them be the strongest through training and awareness, because, you can't just think that it's going to happen through osmosis. For some that might, but for many it won't.
So I think Noble4, since that name, came up, again, I'm not ripping on Noble4. I think, they've done fantastic things in the industry, and I know some of them personally, but they use that a lot. That phrase that people are the weakest link. And I think that's bullshit. And even if they were the weakest link, don't tell them the weakest link. Just kind of start off on a bad foot. Because having that security aware culture, it really just comes down to paying attention, being more deliberate. Other things we can do to increase the effectiveness of the people and the culture in the organization is stop overworking them. A lot of people make mistakes because they didn't have time to think about it. I got 5,000 fucking emails, and I've got 44 meetings today, and I've got 3 projects that need to be done. It's really hard to be situationally aware in all that stuff. So I think recognizing when your employees maybe are overworked, when there's not a good work-life balance, and you'll notice that in other parts of their work, right? They'll be making mistakes. But that's all going to lead to security stuff too. And most of that comes back, I think, again, to a shitty system design.
Right. Yeah. Because what goes hand in hand with that is if people don't want to do inefficient things. So if the way your security is built is inefficient and they're already over capacity and out of time, that's when people might compromise without even thinking, because they're like, I can't go through this whole process again. Like it's,
Right. And going back to the tailgating thing, it goes against cultural norms and everything else in a lot of places to not hold the door open for somebody, I go through the door and then I turn on and close the door while you're coming in. Right. I mean, you're asking people to do something that's very uncomfortable, that goes against so many things that they've learned before. And then when people do tailgate, you're going to crack down on that. I mean, it's just such a damn disconnect. So you have to ask yourself from a security perspective, how important is that entry point really? I mean, if somebody piggybacks, how important is it really to the organization? And if it really is that important, then put in a control that you can't piggyback in. Nobody's going to feel uncomfortable if you have to badge in and go through a turnstile, at least the person, right? Because I don't have to close it behind me. It's already closed.
Are piggyback and tailgate the same thing?
Yeah.
Well,
I use them
piggyback is when you actually jump on someone's back and they carry you in.
Yeah.
Metaphorically.
Yeah. Metaphorically speaking. Correct. But you can see that because I've done that before. Because I'm a security guy. And if the rules say no tailgating, many times I've turned around and closed the door, and I've been called an asshole for it numerous times.
Well, you didn't have
Thanks
to
a lot.
stare at him through the other side of the glass, Evan. That's
And flip them off. But,
Do you
so
think this whole security culture can be nurtured without the support of executive management, C-suite? So then how do you instill in them the importance for the value?
well, I think, it goes back to what motivates them.
Money.
If it's money, well, then how will this make us more money? If it's mission, how will this focus our people more on the mission? If it's both, it's disruptive, it's uncomfortable, using just the tailgating example. If we're so motivated by, making money, how many logins do I have? Where are all of them using multi-factor? The more steps you put in place, the less money you're going to make. So trying to weigh those things out, the culture with executives, you have to start with a conversation with them. You have to start with a relationship with them, and then you have to explain it in the language that they're going to understand and see the value in it.
Yeah, and I would maybe even take a step back and maybe the conversation, before everyone gets all nervous about having to sell it, start with maybe just asking them, hey, do you want security to be important here? And you might find, I don't know if this is true, I don't have data to back it up, but you might find that there are a lot of executives that would say yes to that. Yeah, I don't, for whatever reason. And if it comes from them and you're not trying to convince them, that's probably the best. If they say, yeah, I don't want to be on the news. I don't want, I want our clients to trust us. I want to be able to leverage that and sell more by, bragging about how we take security seriously, whatever it is. If it starts with them, then that's a great.
But the weird thing about that is they'll all say yes. Almost all will say yes.
Right.
I think most of them don't know what that actually means. And the reason why they'll say yes, certainly publicly, is what CEO would say it's not. Yeah, no, security's not important to us. Well, what?
Yeah. Right.
And then if you're the one asking the question, even in privately, well, the question's coming from a vCISO who's a security person, so they're going to say, absolutely, it's important. It's like, well, do we have a budget? What? So I think that's the danger in asking them so directly. It really does take coaching. It really does take even social engineering, the executives, I get blamed a lot for social engineering.
I think you're absolutely correct on that. Like those are great points. Do you feel like there has been a shift though with executives where they do say that they're starting to say that and mean it and starting to say like, yes, and I'd like you to show me how, advise me how to do this. I don't exactly know what it means, but I do know that I want this. Is that increasing?
Yeah, I think it's increasing. But again, we struggle in our own industry with defining what information security is. So I think they say yes because they want to do the right thing. I think most leaders in most companies want to do the right thing. They want to be responsible, right? They understand that they're leading people and they're leading lives and they're leading, the company. And that's another reason why they'll all say yes. It's not like they're lying. They don't truly know what it is. And we suck at, when I say we, like this industry sucks at explaining what it is. That's why I like simplifying things, like what we do, right? We consult you to make good information security risk decisions. Then we go off and implement those things. In order for me to make good information security risk decisions, or in order for me to consult you to make good information security risk decisions, you'll need to know what those are. And then you make the decision. And if it's a decision that I think isn't a good information security risk decision, I'll tell you. That's my job as a consultant. It's still your decision. And I'm still going to go off and work my ass off to implement whatever you wanted to implement as well as I can. But, for me as that consultant, for me to watch anybody make poor decisions and not say anything, I don't think that's the type of vCISO you want. I think you want the type of vCISO that's got your back, that's watching out for you, that wants you to make good information security risk decisions, not for the sake of security, but for the sake of your business. And when you make information security risk decisions that go against my recommendation, there's no offense to that. I just want to make sure that you understand why it was a recommendation and that you truly are understanding the risks that you're accepting. So I think that's the conversation you really want to have with the executives rather than, do you take security seriously? It would be nice if security was so well understood that they could answer that with I think, without ignorance. And that comes down to us. I mean, you still go from professional to professional and ask them, I've been in this industry for 20 something years. Oh, give me a definition of information security. And it's not the same as mine. And it's not that mine is like the end all be all, but until somebody comes to me with a better one, it's the one I'm going to continue to use, So yeah, executives, they need to understand why, I think why I'm here. And if you truly buy into why I am here, well, then you're probably going to listen to me more when you see me as an ally, to help you. Remember, I'm talking about controls, man. I'm not talking about multi-factor or firewalls or any of that bullshit. I want you to make good risk decisions. The same thing a lawyer would do, right? Same thing, I think same thing the CFO would do. I'm here to help you make the best financial risk decisions and then implement those financial risk decisions. I think if you can position it like that, you're probably going to have a lot more success.
Yeah.
And then within all of that, where does this training and awareness thing fit? Where does the culture fit? In my opinion, like the CEO is the one who sets the culture for the business, whoever's at the top, because you see a lot of places. How many places do you see where you've got all these policies and and on the surface, it looks like they take information security very seriously. It's a mature information security program, and you have executives who aren't following the rules. That's it. That's really common.
Yeah.
And that's really bullshit. How can you expect everybody else to follow the rules when you're not setting the example for them? But as your consultant, I would tell you that. How many VCSOs do you think are comfortable having that difficult conversation with the CEO? So there's a level of confidence I think you just need to build, because you may think it's a great idea, but from a risk perspective, you're really leaving yourself exposed, and somebody has to tell you. I can't tell you how many times we've been in incident responses and the executives didn't know. Nobody told them. So you can't really blame.
Incident response?
Well, that they were exposed the way they were exposed, or, this vulnerability existed for a long time and we've been trying to plug it, but we couldn't get budget. And nobody had the difficult conversation with the executive management, said, it's fine if you don't want to finance this thing, but this is the risk we're going to be accepting. And these are the things that could potentially happen. So now my recommendation switched from the preventative maybe side of things of what mitigating controls can we put in place to detect if that vulnerability is compromised, and then make sure we've got, an adequate, prudent response for it. But a lot of times you'll do the incident response and they're like, I didn't even know we had that system. I didn't even know, you'll have a certain group like, yeah, we told you about that, but nobody told the executives. You know what I mean? It just communication breakdown bullshit.
Yeah.
So if you want that culture, which is real, again, I think culture is really important, but you have to have the discussion. And if they say no, well, then you have to, I think, be confident enough to tell them what the potential consequences of that decision are. We don't have crystal balls. We can't predict the future. But if you have a shitty information security culture, I can assume we're probably going to have more disruptions to the business. We're probably going to have to spend more money on incident response. We're probably going to have to spend more money on cyber insurance if that's important to us. We're probably going to have an increase in employee dissatisfaction because, employees don't like clicking on links and falling for phishing attacks. That's a mistake, and they feel like shit about it. So I think just you have to lay it all out there for them. And if they still want to make that decision, so be it. It's their business. But I think a lot of times you get the executive says no, or I don't want to talk about it. And then it ends. And then we go off and bitch and complain about the fact that I can't get executive buy-in. You didn't communicate well.
You know how in class you talk about if you didn't have a seat at the table with C-suite that you wouldn't take that job? Is it kind of the same with the security culture? To me, it feels like it's an uphill battle. If there's just like, I don't want to think about it. I don't care. I just want you over here doing your thing and, leave me alone. Would that be a huge deterrent as well? Like, I'm wondering if,
And to qualify, if you're just starting out as a VCSO and just starting out in this business, you can't be choosy. So I got to the point where I would only work if I had FaceTime or at least some communication channel with the CEO and or board, because you could get choosy as you build that stuff. You know what I mean? So the question was, sorry, I got sidetracked. I had to qualify that because I don't want CISOs or VCSOs to think that you can just command.
You can choose.
Right. You have to start a business and you have your own bills to pay too, right?
Yeah, right. Well, the question was, would that be a deterrent if they didn't embrace a security culture? Would that be a deterrent in terms of working with that organization?
I think it's situationally aware, right? Going eyes wide open. Okay, I know that this is going to be the way it is. How will I navigate that? How will I not get frustrated? I mean, I have my own quality of life to work on, right? As does every other VC. So you've got to, some of you we have spouses, we have kids, so if that's going to create so much frustration in my life, then yeah, it would be a huge deterrent. But if I can navigate that and just know that going in, okay, this is the way it's going to be. I'm not going to get FaceTime. I'm going to make a whole bunch of recommendations and they're not even going to listen to me. It's not going to stop me from continuing to tell you the truth, continuing to reinforce that while it's your business and I respect it and I appreciate, your perspective. At the end of the day, I'm just going to keep driving home that this is your problem. Information security is ultimately your responsibility, not mine. And I think, they'll hear that enough, and then they'll start to see maybe other parts of success maybe that you're having in the program and want to play ball. There's other strategies you can use. Like you mentioned, the Information Security Committee. If I can get a committee established, committees are great for managing up and managing down. If the committee makes a recommendation that you start participating in the damn security program.
Yeah.
Well, so you look for ways to socially engineer them out of that. It's not healthy for them. It's like, It's almost like a family member who's an addict. You know what I mean? Just because they're not listening to you and they don't want to do it, you don't give up. It's like, no, It's in your best interest for you to participate in this. And I'm going to continue to. Otherwise, I'm really kind of I would have trouble sleeping at night because I feel like I'm a shitty consultant. When there's something so obvious that's broken, I'm just going to change the way I approach it, right? It may not be so forceful or whatever. I might just tweak things, look for other angles to get them eventually involved. You'll find that they usually break down and then start participating in it. But there are, I think, very small minority of leaders of businesses who just suck at it.
I think it also might depend on, for the question that you posed, it might depend on if you sense that they are interested in progress. Like they might not be able to do everything that you want them to do. You might kind of feel like they're not taking it seriously, but if they are at least interested in incremental progress and you have some sort of empowerment to do that, maybe at that point you can feel fine working with them and then kind of trust your ability to lead upwards, like influence them as you go to do better things, just like what Evan said about, sometimes we might have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, I failed to convince them of this risk. I failed. I tried to consult them, and I just didn't do it well. And I'll try again next time. And versus someone who's just flat out not listening and just doesn't care and just making poor decisions.
Yeah,
that's a great point, man. It's those three things again too, right? Trust, credibility, and likability. In reflection, maybe they don't see me as credible. Maybe they don't see me as trustworthy. Maybe they think I'm an asshole. So keeping in mind as you're trying to break through how you're being perceived by them, trying, your best to put yourself in their shoes, especially in public companies. Public companies, I mean, you got to report quarterly financials and all that shit. I mean, that's a very high, it's all focused on money. I don't have time to talk about security shit. And when you hear things like that, it's just, they've been led, I think, wrong for a long time on what information security actually is and how it benefits the business. They've been oversold fear, whatever it is. There's some misconception there that you'll just need to overcome, try to identify that. So at the end of the day, it can make the business more money if we're doing it correctly. It does make the business more resilient, which is fantastic when you play out scenarios like we're taking security seriously. Our competition isn't taking security seriously. And there's a global ransomware attack. Well, now my competition is struggling. They're out of business, doing just fine. I just acquired 30,000 new customers. There's all kinds of different scenarios you can play out on how we can use this. And one of those messages is eventually going to resonate, probably, because it's all truth. There's no lying, and it's no like It's not the overselling the fear shit. Well, if we don't do this, we could be out of business next week. Well, that's a really shitty approach for an information security leader to take because number one, you don't understand people because people always think it's not going to happen to them.
Yeah.
So you just saying that you're going to have to overcome that. And number two, it's always based on fear shit. Who wants to talk to somebody who's always approaching this fear shit? I don't even take, like Kevin used to do that. My work wife was always like, oh my God, and then he was like puzzled that I stopped answering his phone calls. That's what happens, I think, with a lot of the, if you look at it from their lens, oh, here's security again. What is it now?
Yeah.
Another ransomware attack or, it's a lot of negative bullshit. So yeah, but as a vCISO, I think, maybe there's a good class for us to create in that too. It's just the psychology of security, understanding people, understanding why they think the way they think, why they make the decisions they make. I think most people are, not stupid. I think most people want to do the right things. And so when you see people acting stupid, in your opinion, and not doing the right things, I think they weren't told, they weren't taught. Nobody showed them that this is the right way to do things. I don't know. It's crazy.
I also think that we are evolving as just a community of people that inherently are getting more and more security awareness just because of, overall it's talked about more. Back, it wasn't too long ago that your average person like myself, you didn't hear anything about security or the potential for bad emails or whatever. And now it just seems to be more commonplace.
Yeah, but what are you generally hearing? Is it generally positive things? I think logically sound things, or is it like I was reading this morning about 60% of all security professionals, according to this survey, are trying to switch to another company, are looking for other jobs. And you read like, maybe it's just, I think people are more aware, but I think people are more aware, but I don't think they're more educated, because it is everywhere, but it's that awareness. The motivation for a lot of the awareness shit is to sell you more shit. It's not actually to help you. Right. It seems to me like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And when you read between the lines and read the fine print, like this study was sponsored by somebody who sells the shit the study was studying.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, but I like the awareness piece. I mean, there are certainly more discussions about security today than there was, 5-10 years ago, which is a great opportunity then for us as vCISOs, right?
Yeah.
You also bring up a conversation to talk about security. Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
That's okay. You just hear more about breaches and, all the stuff that's happening in our world is just more and more common to hear about. So then it naturally brings more awareness to it.
And
people are like, oh, I need to do something about this.
And they're hearing it from all different places now, their insurance company, whatever, all of a sudden compliance, or their customers are all of a sudden asking, hey, what are you doing for security? And so you're right. It's hitting them from all angles. So
then I think the reaction, reacting out of emotion versus logic and reason. If it evokes a fear emotion, well then sometimes that cancels out the logic and reason piece. So then it motivates you to go do something, but you don't really know why you're doing it. It's not supported by, so let's hurry up and go buy, an endpoint protection product, or let's go out and buy, and implement a security operations center, when logic would tell you, well, is that where I'm supposed to spend my next information security dollar? Is that my most significant risk that I should be focusing on right now? I don't know. And the fact that, and the logic and reason would be the fact that you don't know, that's actually the problem. It's not that you lack some product or that you lack, you know what I mean? So what I'd like to see is more, because it's truthful stuff. There are lots of breaches, but as opposed to like the fear-based response or the emotional-based response that we're going to increase the information security budget because there's more threats today. Is that logical? I think in a lot of cases it's not, because if you're already misspending your information security dollars, why the fuck would you double down on misspending information security dollars because there's more ransomware attacks? You know what I mean? I think we have a long ways to go in just educating executive management and just educating ourselves on what this actually is, what we're actually doing, and how we can, maybe do it better.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating to see people go out and buy products because they do it with good intentions, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like, you don't want to, and they're not stupid. They're smart people, but I think it's just, you're making poor information security risk decisions because you don't understand the situation you're in and you don't understand the context. And I think that's what makes us really good as vCISOs is we consult you to make these good information security risk decisions. So then when you see or read about whatever you read in the newspaper or in the news, we can have a conversation about that and make you feel assured that this is already accounted for. And this is where it's accounted for in terms of context. Yeah. So you have to focus on the situation. You have to focus on risk. And that should make them sleep better at night.
Right.
I'm not asking for security to monopolize all of your time. It's just in all the other risks that you need to account for, financial risk, compliance risk, reputational risk. This is just another risk. But right now you're getting either no input on these significant risks or you're getting shitty input. Just like you have a CFO consults you on the financial risk, just like you have, a CLO, a chief legal officer who advises you on the compliance risk and the legal risk. I'm just the vCISO here to consult you on the information security risk. And when you have a seat at that table, now we can not just put information security risks themselves into context with information security, but now we can also work with our neighbors with finance and legal, take into account those pieces. You know what I mean? Anyway, I get preachy, but it's such a good opportunity for vCISOs who want to be good vCISOs.
Yeah.
Put everything that you do into the two things. You consult them to make good information security risk decisions and you implement those. Feel confident in doing that. When you get pushback, it doesn't mean you quit. It doesn't mean you're doing things wrong. It means you need to adjust. So if you check off your performance against those two things, how well am I consulting the business to make good information security risk decisions? Well, fairly well, but I'm limited by the fact I can't talk to executive management. All right, well then put that down and account for that as, part of your strategy. And I love the fact that you brought up, Meg, the Information Security Committee. That's a fantastic tool to use for that.
Yep. Especially the company-wide piece, because I think if you don't do that, then it inherently is always an IT issue. You just don't see it as the big picture.
And if you do feel, and if you've never done this before as a vCISO and it feels uncomfortable, it's supposed to feel uncomfortable. It's the first time you've done it and it may not go well, but you're probably in this game for a longer term than just one project. You'll take the things you learned from the last time and apply them to the next one. And we teach, pieces in the CvCISO program about how to establish an information security committee, who should be on that information security committee. So we try to help as much as we can with what we know. But I remember the first time I set up an information security committee, it was a damn shit show. And I remember the first time I talked to executive management about information security, also a shit show. So those, I think you have to be comfortable with failure is okay. They're all learning opportunities.
And we do have a free resource on the Security Studio website and also FR Secure's website on developing one of those committees, the roles and responsibilities and who should be on that. So look that.
Yeah, it needs to be chartered. That's one of the biggest mistakes. The charter guides the committee because you'll find that when you set up a lot of these committees, they don't want to be on a damn committee because it's just another damn meeting they have to go to. So if you put a purpose behind it and an incentive for people to come, then they'll participate in the committee. And you need to actually accomplish shit. You can't just come in and just shoot the breeze for an hour. Some people will stop coming. Well, that's good. Hopefully I didn't preach too much, but you got me going on some topics. I love think about that. And I implore listeners to think about that. These are great topics and it's not black and white in some of these things. So should information security culture come first? Think about it. And if you see things differently, I know all three of us would love to hear it. I mean, it's a respectful disagreement. Yeah. So really good topic, Meg. You got me going a little bit.
Cool. I like getting you going.
There you go.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Right.
Hi, Gene. I just want to say hi to Gene before we go.
Bye, Gene.
Hi, Gene. Bye, Gene. Information security. Bye, Gene.
Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. And next week, we're going to have Dave Tuckman on. Dave Tuckman, as we mentioned, is the new executive director for Security Studio Academy, and we're excited to hear from him next week.
You can get out of your bubble bath and dry off now.
Bubble bath. Dave on. We need to have Dave on. Bubble bath. All right. That's it. Have a good weekend, guys.
Have a good one.